Google paid $2.4 billion to an AI coding startup called Windsurf. A year earlier, Windsurf was valued at $1.25 billion, so Google paid almost twice that number. About 200 employees were left behind, and many of them got no payout at all. Because Google never bought the company, it paid a fee to use the technology and hired the two founders and about 40 other employees, and that was the deal. Not one share was bought. A valuation leaves out the two kinds of stock underneath it: the order people get paid in when the company sells, and the price on your own shares. Those two kinds of stock are preferred and common. Investors buy preferred. Founders and employees hold common. The billion comes from taking the price investors paid for their preferred shares and applying it to every share in the company, including all the common. Preferred gets paid first when the company sells. Common gets paid after, out of whatever is left. So spreading the preferred price across everybody's shares prices the whole company at a number only one class of stock was ever sold at, which means a company doesn't have one value. It has four at the same time. The headline number comes from the last round. Then there's a 409A value, the price an independent firm puts on the company's common stock, which comes in lower because those shares don't carry the rights the investors bought and you can't easily sell them. Separately, there's what an employee could get for those shares privately today. In private block trades, Klarna has seen sellers accept discounts of 20 to 30%, while buyers push for 50 or more. And separate from all three is what a buyer would pay for the whole company. Inflection AI raised $1.5 billion from Microsoft, Eric Schmidt, and Bill Gates, and carried a $4 billion valuation. Then Microsoft paid $620 million to license the models, and another $30 million so nobody would sue over hiring the team. $650 million total against a $4 billion headline. Investors got between 1.1 and 1.5 times their money back, depending on which round they were in, and kept their shares in what was left of the company. Microsoft licensed the technology rather than buying Inflection, so $650 million was never a sale price. It still came to about a sixth of the headline number. A valuation also decides how a company spends its money. Olive AI raised $902 million and peaked at a $4 billion valuation, selling hospitals on the promise that its software would save them around 5 times what it cost. Reporting later found that those savings were built on rough estimates, and that the company often didn't track whether they showed up. Olive then started behaving like a company worth $4 billion. It hired executives who had run public companies, opened new offices, and went past 1,000 employees. All of it was paid for out of the money Olive had raised, not out of what Olive was earning. To be worth $4 billion, Olive needed to be making a few $100 million a year. Raising again at $4 billion would have looked like standing still after taking in $900 million, so the next number had to be higher. Then the market turned. By the end of 2022, buyers were paying about 60% less for every dollar of software revenue than they had at the peak of 2021. So the same revenue supported a much smaller valuation. Olive cut 450 people in July of 2022, another 200 the following February, and shut down on Halloween of 2023. The pieces went to Waystar and Humana Health. The CEO later blamed fast-paced growth and a lack of focus. Olive grew that fast because it had raised nearly $900 million and had a $4 billion number to live up to. Most founders don't see a spending problem until the money is nearly gone. That's what a company like Row was built for. Qualifying startups can apply for free Delaware incorporation right inside Row in a few minutes without ever leaving the application. It's attorney reviewed and banking and cards are live as soon as you're set up, even before your EIN. Links in the description. Olive never got the chance to fix its number, but Klarna did. In June of 2021, SoftBank put $639 million into Klarna at a $45.6 billion valuation. That made Klarna the second most valuable finance startup in the world, behind Stripe. 9 months earlier, it had been worth $10.6 billion, so the number had more than quadrupled. 11 months later, Klarna cut 10% of its staff. 2 months after that, in July of 2022, it raised $800 million at $6.7 billion. That's an 85% drop in 13 months. Sequoia, Silver Lake, Mubadala, and the Canada Pension Plan all put money into the smaller round. The CEO pointed out that public companies in the same business had fallen 75 to 90%, and Klarna was not going to escape that. Klarna started that raise asking for about $15 billion. Word got out that it was down to $6.5 billion, and it closed at $6.7 billion. That's what happens when a company has to sell shares in a market that has stopped paying those prices. The $45.6 billion round had made more than 75 employees millionaires on paper. 13 months later, most of that value was gone. Employees are exposed differently in a fall like that, because when a company sells, preferred stock gets paid first, and common stock gets whatever is left. Klarna did come back. It went public in September of 2025 at $15 billion, after cutting its costs and building an advertising business. $15 billion is a lot of money. It is also still 67% below where the number was 4 years earlier. A valuation can fall and recover. What your own shares are worth only gets settled when you can turn them into money. In 2014, a software company called Good Technology was worth about $1 billion and had already filed to go public. Its employees held common stock priced at about $4.32 a share. A year later, BlackBerry bought Good Technology for $425 million, and those employee shares were repriced at 44 cents. If you held 100,000 shares, $432,000 on paper became $44,000. Some employees had already paid tax at that higher price. The paperwork from that sale showed something else. 6 investors on the board held preferred stock worth about $125 million, which was roughly what all 227 million common shares were worth put together. It also showed the board had turned down an $825 million cash offer from CA Technologies 6 months before selling for $425 million. The CEO left with $4 million plus $1.9 million in severance. 3 things decided how that ended, and you can find out all 3 about your own company. The first is how much preferred stock sits ahead of you, and on what terms. You already know preferred gets paid first. What matters is how far ahead. Some investors take their money back and then take a share of what's left on top of that. Others get paid before the investors who came in earlier, or collect 2 or 3 times what they put in before anyone holding common stock gets $1. Terms like these got more common after 2022, mostly at companies struggling to raise. The second is the 409A value, the fair market value assigned to the company's common stock. The 409A in place when your options were granted helped set your strike price, and the current value can affect the tax consequences when you exercise them. The headline valuation doesn't determine either one, so find out your strike price, what exercising your options would cost, and what taxes exercising them could trigger, because the bill can arrive years before the company ever sells. The third is whether your company ever gets sold at all. Good Technology's employees at least had a sale to be disappointed by. You also don't get your stock all at once. You earn it a piece at a time, usually over 4 years. At Windsurf, the people who joined most recently had earned almost none of theirs when Google's money arrived. And some of the engineers Google hired lost their Windsurf stock and started 4 years over. Amazon did the same thing twice, paying to use the technology from Adept and from Covariant, and hiring their founders and a chunk of their staff, without buying either company. These deals keep happening because the buyer gets the people and the technology without buying the shareholder's stock. The people Google left behind did get a second outcome, though not from Google. 72 hours after the Google deal, a company called Cognition bought Windsurf, took the remaining team, waived their vesting cliffs, and gave employees credit for the work they had already completed. Cognition didn't have to do any of that. Google had already shown that a buyer can take people and the technology and leave everyone else's shares alone. Olive raised at a number it could never reach. Klarna raised at one it had to cut by 85%. The number a founder should take is the one their business could grow into. One useful test is whether the company could be worth 2.5 to 3 times the number in 18 to 24 months, compared to what public companies in the same business are worth right now. If it can, the number is ambitious and the business has room to chase it. If the price is already 3 times what those public companies are worth, the founder has used up the next round before raising it. A smaller raise usually beats the biggest one offered. Every extra dollar taken at a number the business hasn't hit yet is a dollar that has to be explained at the next round. But simple terms beat a big number. 180 million on a simple term is usually better than 260 million, where investors take back twice their money before anyone else gets paid, and where they get handed extra shares if the company stumbles. It's a good sign when the investors who are already in put money into the new round. When the people who know the company best sit one out, find out why. And the business underneath has to be working. Customers should spend more each year than they did the year before, and the company should be burning less than $1.50 in cash for every dollar of new yearly revenue it adds. The warning signs point the other way. One investor setting the price with no history in your industry is a problem. So are terms that promise investors a set return, or a set price when the company goes public. Watch for a big share of the round going into the founder's pockets instead of the business, or a customer count that includes people on free trials. And watch the founder who quotes the valuation in interviews. The founders who make it through treat the valuation as a debt they have taken on. A valuation is a price paid by investors for preferred stock on one day. Everything after that is the company trying to grow into it. The ones who can't do it before the money runs out end up where Olive did, So before you sign anything, sit down with your own lawyer and work out what every person in the company would receive if it's sold tomorrow at 3 different prices. That's the only number that tells you anything about your own shares. And if you're setting a company up now, before anyone has put a number on it, qualifying startups can apply for free Delaware incorporation right inside Row. Attorney reviewed with banking and cards live as soon as you're set up. Links in the description. This whole video started the day the round closed. If you want the part before it, where the money gets raised, the terms get set, and the founder finds out who controls the company, if you don't understand funding, you don't understand startups, is the one to watch next.